So after Steve and I caught up for a bit, we started to talk about what it's like to raise musical kids. So I'm going to cut into this edit. You're going to hear us talking and you can hear our discussion. This was midway through a long conversation. Hope you enjoy. Let's talk about how do we raise musical kids?
Well, you've got two of them and yours are older. So how did you get into this? How do we tell me, Dave?
Yeah, great. Okay.
You got to deal with like a driving child. Like I'm not
I am.
there yet.
I am. Yeah. So I have a lot of thoughts on this. And I think the fundamental for me is for music or art really is it needs to be rewarding. And usually for a kid, that means fun. Like at this point in my life, not all parts of my art process are fun. Sometimes it's annoying to have to.
I would interrupt you. For adults, it needs to be fun. For
Yeah.
that is a thing that people forget. Like it's supposed to be fun and enjoyable.
What I would say counterpoint to that is sometimes though we have frustration that's a part of the process. And I think you have to be willing to embrace that frustration because it's not always fun. Like when you're going on tour with
Going out with Blood Orange this fall. There,
Blood Orange this fall. Okay, you'll be on tour. Great. So you're now part of that is fun. And part of it's like, damn, I can't get these things to sync, or I can't get this loop to do the thing it's supposed to do. And then there's frustration. So I like to use the phrase like it needs to be rewarding. Like at least it needs to be at the end of the day when you finish, you get the band on stage and everything's clicking. Now you feel good. But sometimes it's not fun. But I think with kids, yeah, you try to lean more on fun and find ways to reward it, right? Like when they do a recital and then they make a mess up, it's like, that's all right. Wow, you tried something. Cool. Yeah, it was hard. But it doesn't always have to be rosy, smiley fun, too.
Well, that's the resilience. Resilience is everything.
As a coach, like I talk to artists about, like, you have to expect frustration a little bit, too, because sometimes artists are surprised by it. Like okay, I'm going to record some drums today. And then they go, oh, man, it's not working. And it's like, no, just expect frustration's part of it. It's just going to be like, if you were remodeling your kitchen, it's going to be frustrating, or if you're, buying a new car, it's going to be frustrating at times. Like it's just frustration. Sometimes we're like, we don't allow for it. So I think that's part of it, like raising musical kids, that resilience, expecting it to be frustrated. That's okay. And definitely, I think here's the thing a lot of folks want to know is how much pressure do you put on them? And for my wife and I, what we did is we just said, if you're gonna get lessons from somebody, that's a real privilege. You're really lucky to have this special person teach you music, which is such a powerful thing. So you need to respect that by touching your instrument every day. Now, I'm not going to measure how long you do it. I'm not going to tell you, comment much. I do a little, but I comment much on how you're practicing. But I really want you to just make sure you have relationship every day with that instrument. So I think that was helpful because we got them in a piano class when they were like 3 or 4. And they had this like Russian piano teacher who was teaching 9 kids who could hardly stand it through the class. They're squirming and everyone, but it was like, okay, but they're touching their instrument every day. And then at about age 8 for one or age 10 for the other, they're like, I'm done with piano. I can't stand it. And they started to choose their own path. So my youngest got really into trumpet from video game soundtracks. He was listening to
My daughter played trumpet. My daughter took trumpet
really?
this year.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And so he kind of got into it from like, there was this game, kind of 1920s style animation. It had this like big band soundtrack, like kind of a Gene Krupa era 30s, 40s big band. And at one point he was like, hey, Dad, can I print out? I didn't even know where this came from. He comes into my office. Can I print out some sheet music? And I was like, sure. Yeah. What do you want to print? And he prints out this piece of music. And then he goes down the piano and starts just like a maniac attacking this thing, trying to figure it out. So the video game kind of got him curious about how this stuff works. And then the trumpet became his main instrument. And then son of a drummer, well, he started playing drums last summer and he's singing all the lead parts. So he's learning like Green Day tunes and Weezer tunes. And, he's kind of gone from his jazz phase now into a little bit more of a rock thing on his own. So I'm letting him follow his own journey. And I think there are a few resources of things I'll put in like the blog post. There was this great book by that famous bassist called The Music Lesson. Really cool book. And the audiobook is great because they actually perform it. They kind of like really perform all the characters. So that great audiobook, Victor Wooten, and he performs it. And it's like kind of these pivotal music lessons. Like they talk about groove and they talk about like no wrong notes and like just some really interesting concepts to like lay out there in a music lesson concept. And so we listened to that audiobook as when they were kids, like driving around, and I loved it, frankly. was like, "Oh, great. I want to," in fact, saying it out loud, I want to listen to it again. Yeah, so then in my oldest, he was a bit different. Like his playlist, the stuff he chooses to play around the house, like everyone's like, "Whoa, that's a cool song." Whoa, he's like kind of this master DJ. And he was playing guitar, so he pivoted from piano to guitar. And then now he plays bass, and he's got a rock band. They're called Warp, and they play local shows and stuff, and they're playing
Nice.
talent shows, and he's really into it. And now he's starting to write his own music. And they're writing, both of them write music, and they see me writing music. So some of it is like they're watching what they see modeled. But I would tell you honestly, they won't play music with me. If I say, "Hey, can we play? Well, you want to play together?" They're like, "No." It's pretty funny. Like you think it's different than it is. They kind of have their own thing, and they're separating. They want that independence, and
Mhm.
that's not cool. And yet, ironically enough, they're doing a lot of things I do. I don't know. I don't know if I
Well,
know.
it's interesting. So
Those are my
some of
thoughts.
the points, yeah,
Yeah.
like I think, the idea of letting them come to it on their own, that was something that I was very conscious of because if she wants to get into music, there's a lot of equipment here that like
Right.
is
Yeah.
gonna, she's gonna have her friends are gonna want to come over, and if she's got a dad who can engineer and produce things, but I didn't want to push it on her. I wanted her to want to come to it, and so we kind of started the same way with piano lessons. We didn't start as early. We were doing like on the iPad, some kind of things, but she only really got into piano lessons about a year and a half ago when she was like 7.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
she's got a great piano teacher who like Meta got my daughter really got wanted to get into like writing music because they had like a composer's concert at her music school.
Oh, cool.
And so when she got into this, she wanted to start writing songs about our dog. And so now she's writing a whole album about our dog, Indy. And, with these songs like Squirrel, Squirrel and Good Boy and Waggy Tail. And like, but
Awesome.
she's found a vehicle and she loves playing on the fun machine. And it was interesting because, like,
Oh, yeah.
this idea of like doing the recitals, like she was hesitant about going up and singing and playing her song on the piano.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
then we came down to my studio where we were going to take the dog freaking out at the door. When anyone comes to our house, our dog's like, "Oh, oh, someone's
Art
here, someone's here."
art
And,
thing while
and
you're
it's like, dude, oh, all right. So we were like kind of getting him all agitated, going, Indy, squirrel, who's here? And then we would record him going, and then
yeah.
we were gonna edit that all together to play behind the chorus when we went squirrel, squirrel, and then the dog would go.
Yeah, yeah.
And so in the process of doing that, she came down and started playing on the different keyboards the parts and was like, "Oh, that sounds really good." And then she's like, "Oh, Papa, I want to record this drum beat." So the fun machine has like drums in it, and it's got like a bass part we
Oh,
can
yeah.
doom,
Yeah.
doom, doom, doom. And so once we like tracked everything and she wrote the whole thing, she played everything. I just put a little bit of autotune on her voice or whatever, but she
Yeah.
loved listening on the headphones and looping. It's funny because like
So fun, right?
when I have singers over it and they get it and I, kind of look at each other and you do the nod, like, okay, we got it. They do 2 or 3 takes and then you of the part and then, all
Yeah.
right, we'll stop. With her, like, she didn't know that that was like, there was a cue happening for me. I was looking at her to be like, oh, are we done? And she just kept repeating the vocal every time it was like this part. And she just was singing it with all her heart, like 20 times in a row. I'm like,
Mm.
I gotta stop this because she'll just keep doing this forever.
Yeah.
And so I ended up making this huge gang vocal of all of her takes
Right.
because they were all great and it just sounds so the choruses are pretty epic.
Oh my
But
god.
yeah, it's one of those things of like, she then was like, I want to sing this with the playback. So I came in and her dad, who's done playback for all these artists, was running the playback for her. She even made a video for it. And so we played the video on the big monitor and she sang along to her song. We even did like a bark in with the dog instead of a count in. He went woof, 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 doo, doo. And she like, and so, yeah,
Awesome.
so I think what you're saying, like this idea of like, I wouldn't frame it necessarily as expecting frustration,
Mhm.
but this idea of like, I don't, if you frame it that way, it could be like
You're gonna make it.
self-created,
Yeah, right, right.
whatever. But I think it's more of like, understand that there's going to be times when it does get frustrating or things don't go the way they're supposed to go.
Right.
And that's okay. It's
It's
part of
part
the
of
process.
it might be part of the process, depending on the
It might be part of it because there is. I think you said something earlier about the victim, like thinking, like people do kind of to quote one of our old tech support guys, Dwayne, like bushwhack themselves, where they like, you kind of like create your own stumble because a lot of times people are too busy looking back and they don't see the obstacle right in front of them. And then they like trip over it. So
Right.
it's one of those things tough now, right? Like like everyone wants to coddle the kids and they can't fail and you can't say no on anything and
Right.
everything's right. But it's like, we just finished third grade. We had a great teacher, but she was like, she was known as the tough teacher. And it actually was really good for the kids. Like I think they
Yeah.
grew a
Good.
lot and they learned
Right.
a lot from it. And that resilience is so key because, yeah, man, things don't go the way you want them to, but you have to show up every day.
Right.
And that's the big thing, like what you're saying, like, work on your thing every day. And that's when the inspiration can come. So,
So there we have it. That's my interview with Steve Nalepa about musical kids, which was a little more of an interview of me, frankly. But Steve has the proof in the pudding of having an album out with his daughter. And so check that out. We also have a couple other videos to check out. If you haven't seen it, I have 3 blog posts with Steve. And we talk about AI, we talk about mentorship in music education and his new music school called Future Proof. So please share with anyone you think might be interested. Appreciate any comments and all that good stuff because making content is hard. Thank you.